Welcome to the Art and Science of Leadership, where we get an opportunity to talk to leaders and experts about the true art and the real science behind effective leadership. Today, we are thrilled to be joined by Dr. Angela Kim, a board-certified psychiatrist and board-certified forensic psychiatrist, Johns Hopkins trained, very close to my heart as a Hopkins alum myself. So, Angela, thank you so much for being with us today on the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Chris.
We appreciate you already because we know that you and I have had some conversations in advance of our time together today about the things that really motivate people. And one of the things that we've talked a little bit about, which I think is going to be very relevant for our listeners today, is this concept of emotional quotient, also referred to as emotional intelligence. But tell us a little bit from your perspective, Angela, why this has become a relevant topic really over the last several years.
Sure, Chris. Yeah. Emotional intelligence, also called emotional quotient or EQ, is a newer concept really since the 90s, but it's very popular now. Lots of people talking about it, writing, studying it. And what it is really is an awareness and understanding of our own emotions. So not only what we're experiencing emotionally, but why we're experiencing it. And then in addition to that, it's an awareness and understanding of the emotions of other people in our lives, people around us. A big component of emotional awareness is empathy and self-control. And the ability to then use your awareness and understanding of your own emotions, as well as the emotions of others, to effectively communicate and then manage relationships is what EQ is all about.
You stated that so eloquently, and I've been looking and studying this topic for over a decade, and you said that better than I could have ever said it. So thank you for giving us that articulate and science-backed explanation of it. And I think when we hear that from you, it becomes evident how important this is in the realm of leading organizations, because at the end of the day, these are human systems. And that's what I find, Angela, so interesting, is that maybe before, I would say, the mid to late 90s, I don't know that there were many leaders that number one, had a grasp of what EQ or emotional intelligence was, but maybe more important, why it was even relevant. Is that what you would say as well? Is that it's really over the last couple of decades that it has started to gain more acceptance, for lack of a better term?
No, that's absolutely true. It really hasn't been something that we've studied until more recently. Even today, you'll ask people, what is EQ? And many people have never heard of it. And these are intelligent folks. So it is a newer concept. But as I said, it's a growing concept in popularity and in terms of being studied and looked at. And certainly as it applies to all areas of life, but in particular business, and helping individuals in their relationships, both social context as well as professionally. It is being seen as one of the most important indicators of success and performance, not only interpersonally, socially, but in business.
Wow. And it has so much more impact when I'm able to talk to someone in your seat with your level of acumen about this, because sometimes, as you may not be surprised, when working with leadership teams, there's a bit of a reluctance to accept this concept, even though it's now steeped in science, in hard science, like the one that you practice, but also in the social and behavioral sciences, that this does track with performance. And I'm starting to see a little bit more of a thawing of the ice, so to speak, in teams, leadership teams in particular, willing to trying to understand this concept better, and how not only they can leverage it as a leader themselves, but also have it become more a part of the culture of their organization. And it was really helpful to hear you state it the way you stated it, because one of the individuals who's done a lot of research on this over the years is this gentleman, Daniel Goleman. and the ideas of the layers of emotional quotient. And I think I heard you reference it, which is the sort of the self-awareness part of it, but also the social awareness part of it. There's the you part, and there's the other part.
Absolutely. It's not only understanding of our own emotions, and the questions of why am I feeling this way? Not only that I'm feeling this way and being aware of it, which so many of us are not, but why am I feeling the way I am? What are the triggers? What's going on? But in doing so, it's also the awareness of the other individual that we're dealing with, or individuals. So by increasing our awareness and understanding, also helps to increase our understanding and awareness of those around us, and then how to manage that.
Yeah. That is the critical piece, because once we can understand that, we can synthesize more of the teams and the individuals across our organization to be more. It's not just communication, it's the alignment, really. It's the engagement of the members of the team to want to be there. If there is a higher level of emotional quotient among a team or an organization, we have seen that result in better indicators of performance. What, from your expertise, Angela, what areas of the brain are we talking about here? Why is the emotional intelligence part of it related to our hard wiring, so to speak?
Well, as human beings, we are individuals who, different from animals, want to be wanted and need to be needed. We want to be valued. Uh, our emotions, our feelings, our thoughts are important. And when we are not validated, when people don't listen to us, we feel as though we're unimportant. We become disgruntled. The motivation, the drive, dopamine in our brain is not fired. And so we become apathetic. And as employers, or in any context, really, we want the individuals that we're dealing with, our relationships interpersonally, professionally, we want those relationships to be optimal so that we can get the most out of those relationships. And in a work setting, productivity and bottom line are key, but simply telling someone what they need to do and having them do it effectively, efficiently, and in a dedicated way are two different things.
Mm. And that your words carry even more weight in today's organizational world, because we have distributed workforces. We have a a a a deeply driven need to understand diversity, equity, and inclusion further. We have this overstimulation of social media. All these things in confluence with one another, it only makes the emotional intelligent leader that much more valuable to be able to coalesce around a common goal and purpose. And I'm just so pleased to hear from your perspective how relevant this is in the scientific community as well, because I think the optimistic part of me wants to say, well, I can't I increase my EQ?
Absolutely. The brain is malleable. There is neuroplasticity, or the ability to mold and shape our brains. And certainly, EQ is one area where we can certainly improve upon. It does take effort, but we can certainly improve. The brain is an amazing organ, which we have so much to learn about still, but we can absolutely improve our EQ.
It's so interesting to me when you say things like we're still learning so much about it. I think that's fascinating. It's the one organ at this stage in our evolution where it's still such uncharted territory. We're still learning so much. And I think, going back to your neuroplasticity commentary, it's so critically important in view of how our brain chemistry is dialed up and dialed down in this world of overstimulation. And we can't possibly absorb all the digital information that's coming at us. We need to be able to really gird ourselves against all of this stimulation by having that stronger foundation of emotional quotient. What are some ways that you have seen or even done research on in which we can improve our level of emotional quotient? Have you seen anything that stood out to you as worthy of pursuit?
Well, yes, and this is not all complex rocket science. There are some basic fundamentals of neuroplasticity and certainly emotional quotient. And one practice. We always say, and you're a former athlete, Chris. Practice makes perfect. And when it comes to the brain, that's so true. When it comes to emotional quotient or emotional intelligence, first of all, increasing your awareness of what your emotional states are. So many of us go around and we have no clue about what we're feeling emotionally on a day-to-day basis, unless we become extreme. There's an extreme emotion, extreme joy, or anger, or something devastating happens. But otherwise, we really don't pay much attention to our emotional states. So one way to improve emotional quotient is to be aware, an awareness of ourselves and what we're feeling, and then beyond that, to ask ourselves, as I said earlier, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? What's going on? What are the triggers? And then to be able to kind of coach yourself. Obviously, if you respond to an emotion in a negative way or in a way that creates conflict, in a situation or in a relationship, you want to analyze that and say, okay, what just happened? Why did this not go well? What can I do better? But by being aware of your own emotions, then in turn, thereby you can be more aware of the emotions of others, and understanding them.
Very helpful. And it underscores something that we have been trying to work with our leadership clients on is the creating the space to reflect. And if you're not reflecting, you're not creating the awareness about your own emotion. And how you can, because at the end of the day, if we are over dialed certain levels of the emotional labor that comes with leading, we won't make clear decisions. We won't be able to have a better conversation with that member of the team. We won't be able to engage in the next opportunity. And I love what you said there, and tying it back to good habits, creating the habit of being aware, recording it, acknowledging it, identifying where it can be better. In my layman's view of some of your world, it's the creating, like rewiring some of those neural pathways by starting new habits is how I'm sort of absorbing some of that. Is that far off?
No, I think that's right on, Chris. And just to add on to that, some additional, basics. Listening. I mentioned, empathy being a huge part of emotional quotient. Improving the ability to increase empathy, your empathy towards the individuals you're involved with, understanding them. By doing so, it requires us to ask questions, understanding where they're coming from, how they're feeling, but also observing them. They may be saying, oh, everything's okay, but clearly through their body language or their tone or their behavior, it's not okay. So then following that up and being able to ask questions and really showing really that you care. That goes a long way in every relationship, especially in a professional context, if you're a supervisor or the CEO of your employees who are disgruntled about something. So being able to walk in their shoes and understanding them gives you more credibility in their eyes and more willingness, hopefully, to bridge the gap and for them to be able to willing to understand and do what you're saying.
I'm very appreciative of your reference to the power of questions. There's so much power in asking the right questions, right?
Right.
And that is a discipline. It's a habit, and one that oftentimes leaders are not invoking quite enough. And I just think it's so interesting, Angela, that we are in this world of, you can't open any article these days without reading something about artificial intelligence. Yet here we are talking about the thing that makes us most uniquely human, which is our emotional capacity, which is fascinating to me. And you know what this makes me think about, Angela? It makes me want to talk to you more. I feel like we need to have, episode 2 of our conversation shortly. But it is, I'm very grateful. I know our listenership will be grateful to hear from someone as accomplished as you in your field to share the impact and importance of EQ, emotional intelligence. But Dr. Angela Kim, board certified psychiatrist and forensic psychiatrist, we thank you so much for joining us today.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Chris.